There is a level of discipline in goal setting that makes others look at you with fear, and today you will discover exactly how to reach that level. Have you ever seen the type of person who sets goals in January, and by the end of the year has achieved everything they wrote down? The person who wakes up every day according to plan, performs exactly the actions required, and never stops. When everyone else gives up in the second week, they keep going. When others make excuses, they keep moving forward. And do you know what people say about them? That's not normal, but they are not miracles. They are not geniuses. They are simply using an ancient Japanese technique, a system so formidable that it virtually eliminates the possibility of failure. The Japanese call it Kakugo, no Keikaku, the path of no retreat goal setting. And once you understand how it works, you will never break your 2026 goals again. However, there is a catch. This system is not for everyone. It requires you to eliminate a part of your old self, the part that always makes empty promises, always procrastinates, always quits halfway. The part you don't want to admit exists, but has dominated your life for years. But before I show you how it works, do one simple thing. Think about the biggest goal you want to achieve in 2026. Just think about it. This shows me you are truly serious about changing. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The day everything changed. Today I'm going to tell you the story of a man named Ethan Miller. Ethan is 34 years old, lives in Seattle, and has worked in tech for nearly 10 years. He is not lazy. He is not incompetent. He is the type of person who works 10 hours a day, always delivers projects on time, is trusted by colleagues, and outwardly appears to have no problems. But inside, his life was quietly rotting in a way even he didn't realize. Ethan always set goals every year. Every January, he would buy a new notebook and write down the things he believed would change his life. Lose weight, run 5 kilometers every day, learn a new skill, save money, start a startup. But they all died the same way. Lose weight, 2 weeks then quit, learn a new skill, no more than 10 days, startup. 1 month then close the laptop and tell himself, not the right time. Clean eating, 3 days, reading books, 7 pages. Ethan became an expert at one thing: quitting. He never said it out loud. No one thought of him that way. But every year ended with him looking at unfinished goals, closing the notebook, and telling himself, next year will be different. But it never was. Ethan's life fell into the damn cycle that most of us know all too well. Week 1. Flooded with motivation, detailed plans, the feeling that the world is opening up before your eyes. Week 2. The negotiations begin. I'm tired tonight. I'll do it tomorrow. Just 1 day off. I'll make it up on the weekend. Week 3. Complete surrender. Everything gets postponed. Every goal gets closed as if it never existed. And Ethan would wait until January of the next year to start over again. A little weaker, a little more discouraged, a little more disappointed in himself, until 2024, when he received the worst performance review of his life. Ethan's manager sat down, opened his laptop, and sighed. Ethan, you have capability. No one denies that. But you lack direction, and you are extremely inconsistent. No curse hurts more than a truth spoken at the exact moment you have nothing left to counter it with. Ethan just sat there, heart pounding, face burning, forcing a weak smile while the feeling of failure crept into every fiber of his being. That night he didn't go home right away. Ethan sat in his car in the parking garage for 40 minutes, staring into the rearview mirror, and realizing he no longer knew who he was. All the goals he had ever written, they didn't fail because the world was too hard. They failed because he never followed through to the end. But the real blow didn't come from that review. The true blow came a month later, when Ethan attended a small tech conference. He went just to kill time, his mind still filled with discouragement. Then a Japanese-born entrepreneur stepped onto the stage, small in stature but with eyes sharp as knives. He didn't talk about coding, didn't talk about AI, didn't talk about innovation. He talked about goals, but in a way Ethan had never heard before. He spoke of an ancient system practiced for hundreds of years in a hidden community in Japan, a system that made failure almost impossible, a method that turned goal setters from trying and hoping into people who were forced to complete. The Japanese call it Kakugo, no Keikaku, the path of no retreat, goal setting. Ethan listened to every word, and the first feeling that arose in him was not excitement, but fear, because for the first time he understood that the problem was not the goals. The problem was himself. And in that moment, in the middle of a room full of people who didn't care, Ethan Miller experienced his first awakening, the moment his life began to veer in a different, more terrifying, but truly alive direction. Chapter 2. The Irreversible Goal Vow. The Japanese man stood on stage and spoke of a concept Ethan had never heard before. Kakugo. He said that in samurai culture, Kakugo is not just a promise, it is the decision to go all the way even if the price is your life. A vow that once spoken instantly kills the old self, and the new self has no way back. Ethan listened and felt chills down his spine. Then the man said something that silenced the entire room. The Japanese do not set goals to try, they set goals to become. In Zen monasteries, when a monk declares a goal, he does not say, "I will try to meditate regularly," or "I will try to follow the rules." No, they declare it as an irreversible truth, as a part of their identity structure, and when the community witnesses it, their primitive brain immediately processes failure as a survival threat. A neuroscientist the entrepreneur mentioned had proven that when people publicly commit to something, the area of the brain responsible for threat detection activates if they even think about failing. In other words, when you declare a goal in front of a community, your brain treats quitting the same way it would treat being cast out of the tribe, a prehistoric death sentence. Ethan sat still, his heart not racing but suddenly heavy. For the first time in his life he understood that goals don't fail because of weak willpower, they fail because they were never placed in the right box in the brain. And when the talk ended, Ethan did something even he didn't understand why. He went home, took out his goal notebook, and wrote down the 3 biggest things in his life for 2025. 1. Complete an important technical certification to advance his career. 2. Lose 20 pounds to regain the health he had lost. 3. Save $15,000 to escape the constant anxiety about money. But this time, he didn't write in the old way. He wrote as if they were already facts. I am the person who completes the technical certification in 2026. I am the person who loses 20 pounds in 2025. I am the person who saves $15,000 in 2025. Then he signed his name, not a quick signature, but one with a slight tremble because he knew something had changed. He took a red ink stamp, the one he had once bought out of curiosity about Japanese culture, and stamped the page. Then he took a photo and posted it on social media, sent it to colleagues, sent it to close friends, sent it even to his cousin who always teased him about setting goals just for fun. And the moment he hit send, Ethan felt pressure as if an invisible rope had tightened around his chest. Not pressure he hated, but pressure of no retreat. Chapter 3. The Non-Negotiable Goal Ritual. But the Japanese entrepreneur didn't stop there. He said that, in Zen monasteries, goals are not just declared, they are placed into a non-negotiable ritual, a fixed time slot that no one is allowed to touch. They call it the ritual hour. Every day, at that exact time, they perform their work without being 1 minute late or 1 minute early. No questions, no considerations, no "I'm tired today." Ethan remembered this and realized his goals would fail again if they only existed on paper. So he chose 5:30 a.m. as his goal ritual. Every morning, without exception, he had to complete 20 minutes of study, 20 minutes of exercise, and 20 minutes of financial plan review. 60 minutes for the 3 biggest goals of his life. The first week was torture. His body resisted. His mind invented every excuse to procrastinate, sleep a little more, do it tonight, just today. But Ethan had made his vow public, and every time he thought of breaking it, the image of the whole world witnessing his failure appeared in his head. Week 2, his body began to understand there was no escape, and the resistance softened. He woke up more easily. He focused better, and on day 14, something strange happened. Ethan opened his eyes before the alarm, as if his body had reprogrammed itself. But the problem wasn't over. Ethan realized that even with a fixed time slot, his ritual was still being broken by himself. Some mornings he changed the order. Sometimes exercise first, sometimes study first, Some days he skipped the financial part and told himself he'd do it later. Some days he changed the exercises. Some days he extended study and skipped exercise. The negotiation he thought he had killed was returning in a more sophisticated form, and Ethan understood that if he didn't lock this ritual down completely, everything he had built would collapse. And that was when he began to step into the deeper, more terrifying layers of this Japanese system. Chapter 4. The One Path. Ethan remembered the words of the Japanese man that day, a quote from Dogen, the Zen master who shaped much of Japan's spirit of discipline. Every practice must have only one form, not two, not 10. 1. Because the moment you allow variation to creep in, your mind will latch onto it to negotiate, to procrastinate, to break the rhythm that is forming. In Zen monasteries, every action from the way you step into the meditation hall to the way you place your hands on your knees has only one single version. No editing, no innovation, no creativity. It is this absolute repetition that kills hesitation and forces the mind to surrender. And Ethan understood that if he wanted to survive the 2025 journey, he had to do the same. Eliminate every alternative, so he built the 2025 single path routine, a sequence of actions that cannot be changed, cannot be adjusted, cannot be negotiated. It consists of 4 parts, totaling 60 minutes, performed in one fixed order. 10 minutes of meditation to calm the mind and prepare the nervous system. 20 minutes of skill study, the technical course to advance his career. 20 minutes of workout, to lose weight, rebuild his body. 10 minutes of financial plan review, to move closer to the $15,000 goal. 40 minutes pursuing goals. 20 minutes strengthening the foundation. That order is fixed to the millisecond. No switching places, no changing durations, no adding, no subtracting. One day Ethan moves slower, one day he feels more tired, but the ritual remains unchanged, because if he allows himself to change the order even once, his mind will use that one time as an excuse for every day after. Week 3. Resistance hit like a storm. Ethan felt trapped in the very schedule he had created. He told himself, big goals need flexibility, need creativity, need adjustment. But he knew that was his mind looking for an escape from control. It hates patterns. It hates being forced into one single shape. And every morning in week 3, it whispered to him, changing it a little today won't hurt. Studying longer is fine. Workout tonight is okay too. But Ethan had gone too far to answer those whispers. He continued. Week 4, the resistance began to crack. His mind grew tired of fighting. It ran out of arguments. It no longer had the energy to battle the steel-hard ritual Ethan had built. And then one morning, he couldn't say exactly when, something shifted. The ritual was no longer something he had to do. It became something his body ran automatically. He meditated before he even thought about meditating. He opened his laptop at exactly minute 11 to study, as if it were a natural reflex. He stood up to work out, as if his body knew that was the only thing allowed to happen at that moment. And by week 6, the strangest thing happened. Ethan began moving toward his daily goals without forcing himself. Each 60-minute morning became 60 minutes of life transformation. 1 inch, then another inch, then another inch. But life never lets a person change too easily. It always has tests for those who try to break free from themselves. The first test came from work. Ethan was sent on a 3-day business trip to California. That meant the schedule was broken. Strange beds, packed work days. The second test came right after, a flu that made his head feel like a rock was pressing on it. The third test was a major project his manager assigned, such a tight deadline that the whole team was complaining. Life's arena was testing him from every direction. But Ethan had understood the essence of the one path. The ritual doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to exist. Business trip. He meditated on the hotel bed, studied in the airport lounge, did equipment-free workouts, reviewed finances right on his phone. Flu. He reduced intensity but kept the duration. Major project. He woke up a little earlier to preserve the ritual. Not a single day was broken. The one path remained unchanged in form, and Ethan realized he was becoming the type of person he once thought could not exist. The person whose ritual runs like a machine. The person no longer shaken by schedules, emotions, or the chaos of life. He was no longer just approaching his goals. He was being pulled toward them, stronger, clearer, and more terrifying every day. Chapter 5. No gaps and pre-solved barriers. There is an ancient principle in Japanese monastic traditions that Ethan remembered vividly from that seminar. The gap is where the weak return. The Zen masters believed that just one moment of slack, one missed day, one unfocused breath, and the entire mental structure you've built over years would instantly crack. And Ethan began to realize this was true, because every time he came close to skipping the ritual, a tired morning, a late night, an overloaded schedule, he would hear the old voice in his head. Just today. That was the weak self coming back. And if you open the door even once, it stays forever. So Ethan decided to leave no gap for it to slip through. No morning was allowed to be empty. No day was permitted to say, "I'll do it tonight." His 60-minute ritual became something that had to happen at all costs, regardless of location, regardless of conditions. On business trips, Ethan meditated in airport lounges amid loudspeaker announcements and the smell of strong coffee. He studied his skills on airplanes, with a small notebook on the tray table. He did workouts in hotel hallways, using bodyweight exercises. He reviewed his finances in the dim streetlight glow of an Uber. One morning he woke up late, with only a few minutes before a team meeting. Ethan stepped into the company bathroom, locked the door, meditated for 5 minutes, exercised for 5 minutes, reviewed finances for 5 minutes, then opened his laptop and went to work as if nothing had happened. No one knew, no one needed to know. Ethan wasn't doing this to impress anyone. He was doing it so the ritual would have no gaps to fall into oblivion. And around day 70, something strange happened. The ritual no longer required force. It operated independently, like an unstoppable current. Ethan felt he was no longer the one performing the ritual. The ritual was performing him. But his journey still lacked one major piece: handling unexpected obstacles, because life has a rule everyone knows. Things that ruin plans happen precisely when you're at your weakest. That's why Japanese monasteries have a principle that outsiders find strange. When the meditation hall floods, they move to the dining hall. When the dining hall burns, they sit in the courtyard. When it rains too heavily, they sit under the eaves. There are no meetings, no discussions, no questions. No one asks, "Are we meditating today?" Because that question doesn't exist. Maintaining the practice is certain, the location is just a detail. And Ethan understood that if he wanted the ritual to survive all 365 days of 2025, he had to do the same. He had to kill every moment of hesitation by preparing the answers in advance. So one evening, he sat at his desk, opened his notebook, and wrote down every single thing that had derailed his goals in the past. Illness, work deadlines, travel, lack of money, stress. Then, under each item, he wrote what the Japanese call a pre-decided action. When X happens, I do Y. When I'm sick, I reduce intensity but keep the duration. When a deadline approaches, I wake up 30 minutes earlier to protect the ritual. When I travel, I bring the minimalist version of the exercises. When money is tight, I spend 10 minutes reviewing the budget, even if my mind is chaotic. When I'm stressed, I don't skip meditation. I add 2 extra minutes. Every obstacle had a solution. Every situation had a fixed response. No room left for negotiation. And this changed Ethan's entire nervous system. He no longer had to think when something happened. No more internal struggle. No more wondering what to do. His brain no longer wasted energy on deciding. It just executed. When barriers appeared, and they always appeared, Ethan was never shaken. He simply shifted from the mode of hoping everything goes smoothly to the mode of no matter what happens, the ritual continues. And from day 80 onward, Ethan realized a terrifying truth. He had become almost incapable of failure. Not because he was stronger, but because he had eliminated every path that led to failure. The ritual no longer relied on willpower. It no longer relied on emotion. It no longer relied on motivation. Ethan had built a system in which failure was no longer an option. And it was at this point that his journey turned in a direction he had never imagined, toward total transformation. Chapter 6. The Metamorphosis. By day 90, Ethan realized he had become an entirely different person. Not a better version, but a new entity. One that his former self would never have believed he could become. Before, Ethan was the type of person who set goals. Now he was the type of person who completes goals. That difference may seem small, but it is the boundary between two entirely different lives. He no longer saw goals as things he hoped to achieve, but as inevitable milestones waiting for him to reach them. Every morning, the 60-minute ritual unfolded like a heartbeat, steady, certain, never skipped. And he no longer had to force himself to follow it. It ran on its own. It was as if Ethan had handed control to an invisible force inside him, and now that force was pulling him toward the future without negotiation. But there was an unexpected side effect. Other people began to notice the change, and not everyone was comfortable with it. In week 12, his colleagues, people who had once been on the same level as him, who used to joke with him in the office kitchen, started looking at him differently. One day during a break, someone blurted out, "Ethan, lately you look kind of scary." Another laughed and added, "Yeah, like extreme. Can a real human actually be that disciplined, like a robot?" They said it half-jokingly, but Ethan knew they really felt it. Because while they were still struggling with the goals they'd abandoned in the first week of the year, Ethan was moving forward every single day without interruption. No wavering. No stepping back. No deviation. To them, that absolute consistency wasn't inspiring. It was a mirror reflecting what they had always avoided. If one person can do it, they could too, but they hadn't. Ethan said nothing. He just smiled. But deep inside, something was confirmed. When your discipline makes others uncomfortable, that means you're on the right path. His girlfriend felt the change clearly too. One evening, as Ethan prepared for the next morning's ritual, she looked at him for a long time and said, "You've become different. Not the kind of different that means distant or cold, but the kind of different that belongs to someone rising out of their old self." She said, "There's something about you more intense, more enduring. I'm not used to it, but I can't look away." Ethan didn't know how to respond, because he felt it too but couldn't put it into words. It wasn't exactly pride. It wasn't exactly confidence. It was like a new energy moving inside him. Quiet, cold, but so powerful that he felt he could no longer fail. And it was at this moment that Ethan realized the most important thing in the entire process. People aren't afraid because his goals are too big. People have heard plenty about big goals. They're too familiar with empty promises, lifelong plans that are never executed. What scares them is that Ethan cannot move forward. He no longer decides whether to continue or stop. He no longer debates, should I do it or not. He no longer considers, I can make it up tomorrow. For him, progress has become the default state. Like water flowing, like the sun rising, like a heartbeat. Ethan no longer chases goals. He is programmed to complete them. And when this happens, 2025, the year he once feared because it reminded him of so many past failures, suddenly became the first year he felt he truly controlled his life completely. No luck, no hope, no waiting for fortune, just the system. A system he built from the ancient pieces of Japanese culture, the irreversible goal vow, the non-negotiable ritual, the one path, and pre-solved barriers. These four pillars connect into a complete mechanism, an unbreakable framework, a structure that even if Ethan deliberately tried to be lazy, would not allow him to return to his old self. And when you reach this state, you understand something simple yet terrifying. Discipline is no longer an action. It is you. Ethan looked back at the past 90 days and could barely recognize the person he used to be, the one who always procrastinated, always found excuses, always quit in week 2. That person had died, and a new version had been born from those repeated hours of ritual, a more enduring, stronger, and more dangerous version for every goal he pursues, because he will not stop. Ever. And now the remaining question is not what Ethan will achieve in 2025, but is there anything in this world that can stop him anymore? When you finish this journey, I have only one question for you. One question that Ethan asked himself on the night he began to change. Are you ready to become the kind of person who makes others afraid by fully achieving every one of your 2026 goals? If this journey has inspired you, please subscribe so you don't miss content that could change your life. Thank you for following to the end, and I'll see you in the next part of this transformation journey.